Okay, welcome back to another tutorial. This one is going to be on Cobra Rolls. So, sit-down Cobra Rolls, like the one you can see here, an inverted Cobra Roll, again on B&M track, and then a non-inverting Cobra Roll, like the one on Kondaa. Hopefully it won't take too long, I can't really guarantee that though. Cobra Rolls are not the easiest elements, probably the hardest inversion to make, even more so than banana rolls somehow. So, yeah, let's just get straight into it. Okay, so for a B&M sit down, which is what I'm going to be doing, just going to be setting the heartline to 1.3 meters, obviously B&M track, and then I just need to very slightly adjust the anchor. I'm going to be doing this at a speed of 95 kilometers an hour. I'm not entirely sure what that is in miles an hour. It's less than 60, just barely. And I'm just going to bring this up to. Oh no, I don't need to do that on this, do I? So Valley is going to be 3.7 Gs, so decently intense. And just make lats dynamic, as is the case with all of these three Cobras actually. Lats are not needed, which is quite nice. One of the few things which would make it a bit more difficult. So for B&Ms, I'm just going to get like a slight time going into it. So for this, I'm just using 10 degrees per second, 4.3 seconds as a quartic section with no time warp adjustments at all. So, and from here, I'm just going to append it, the normal force, and bring this down to 0.7 Gs. So I'm just taking 3 Gs off and append that. I want it to be a bit longer than 1 second. I'll say 1.3. Might adjust that as well and just have a look at where that's getting us. Going to set this to dynamic for now. Yeah, there we go. So it's this sort of shape. Kind of like a weird incline loop that is not too inclined in comparison to something like on Iron Menace or the Swarm. But this is just a decent start. And from here we can add the first snap, is what I'll be calling it. So I'm going to be using for the two B&M ones, I'm going to be using minus 110 degrees per second. And I will just have a look at how this looks. So I'd say that's probably going to be enough. I hope so at least. But we'll see when we bring this up. I'm going to bring this up to 3 Gs rather than 3.7. And append. And that is not quite enough. You'll see it more from on the top. We're very much not in the right direction. So to make it go more so in the right direction, we just need to put a bit more roll on, and that is probably going to be fine, but we'll see. So it's been alright so far. It's not been too difficult at all, but the exit and making it look good is where most of the time spent and the annoyance making Cobra Rolls comes from, for me at least. And I'm just going to essentially repeat everything that I've already done. So this is going to come back up 3 Gs, but it's gone down to 0.7. And I'm just going to add another snap. Again, a 110. And this should be, that's 1.65. So I'm going to set this to 1.65. And append. And that's, it doesn't look too terrible, but it's obviously not right. And this section I need to be 1.4 seconds. probably a bit longer because we're going a bit slow now. And then this is where you can see like the biggest difference so far. Probably a bigger one would be seen from on top. Yeah. So, I mean, if you want just a basic Cobra Roll that executes the correct looking maneuver, so like a half loop into a half corkscrew into another half corkscrew into a half loop, then really this is all you need. But if you want something that is like I'd call it better. Obviously that's up to personal preference, but I think that if you want it to be a bit more realistic and to look better, then yeah, this is where most of the time comes from, is adjusting the exit to be pretty much symmetrical, or as symmetrical as you can get it with the entrance. So right now, in terms of heights at least, it's pretty much as I think it should be. I tend to like having the exit a little shorter, because if it was the same height, it'd be going probably a lot slower. Not a lot slower, but slow enough that it would feel a bit different. So we're at minimum speed is 49 kilometers an hour there. Minimum speed here is 46, and it's already shorter, visibly shorter. So if it was at the same height, it would probably be quite a bit slower, which would make it feel a bit strange. If you use the same roll value, you can fix it by adjusting that, but I don't see the point personally. So there's no need, as of right now at least, to adjust this section of roll, the flat section in between. Generally, anything that you'd adjust with this is just the height. So I can pull this down or bring it back up using this section. And like if I look from the top and look at the shadows, then I really want this shadow to be just a little bit further back. It looks like maybe half a meter. So I'm going to use this section now, the first snap, and just very slightly just move that until it's where I want it. So that looks okay from this angle now. But now from this angle, it looks okay. I can't tell if that's made a huge difference or not. I don't think it has. So good from that angle, and this angle too. So yeah, that's just as good as you can get it in this amount of time, I'd reckon. It's obviously not going to be 100% symmetrical. If you really want it to be 100% symmetrical, go for it. You'll be at it for quite a while, most likely. Especially if you want to get the heights like near identical. But yeah, I don't really see a point in doing that. So now I'm just going to make roll 0. Hopefully you'll stay close enough to 180. So again, that's something that if you really want to make it truly symmetrical, then that's something that you should probably be aiming to do, is have it the exit at exactly 180 degrees away from whatever the entrance is. So in this case, obviously the entrance is 0, so 180 would be 180 degrees away. So yeah, this is just the basic graph, which you'll be seeing for pretty much all of them, all of these Cobra Rolls. Non-inverted Cobra Roll is a bit different in the sense that it will these graphs will come down a lot further. And the inverted one, the inverted BNM, the middle section is pretty much just as intense as the valleys themselves. But other than that, this is the same general formula, you could say, for a Cobra Roll. So let's move on to a B&M invert Cobra Roll. Okay, so roughly similar process for the invert. Instead, now we're going to have a heartline of minus 1.1. And going to be doing the same things with the anchor. I'm just going to make this 90 kilometers an hour now. Add a 4 section and a 3.8 Gs I'll be using, rather than 3.7. But this is going to start in an identical way, really. Being that I'm just going to add 10 degrees per second of roll, 1.3 seconds, I think it was. Make lats dynamic, as you saw in the last one. No need for lats, thankfully. And append this. And now I'm going to bring this down to 0.8. Just, that might be okay. Let's just have a look. Yeah, it's going to need to be a bit close towards 180. Now, the thing with being invert Cobra rolls is that there's quite a weird shaping thing that I've seen on them, where it's like the snap doesn't start or look like it starts until it's gone past inverting. So I'm gonna try and get that here. This is not quite that, but when I lengthen this out, 1.8 seconds might be a bit too much. And another thing is that it looks like most of the snap is done like straight, like parallel with the valley, or as parallel as you can get, really, with them being you know, rolling away from each other, really. So I'm just going to set this to 0.4 seconds at this constant force of 0.8 G. Then this I'm going to bring up back to 3.8 and append. And that looks now like it's rolling a bit too much. So just going to decrease this section very slightly. And that looks okay. Just have a look from the front. Yep. And now from here. So again, that's not quite what I'd like. So I'm just going to shift this a bit further forwards. And that's a bit better, I'd say. Again, you can spend as much time on this as you want, whether it be you don't care about the shaping of it, like getting it exact, or if you really, really want to dial it in and make it perfect. So again, like I did in the sit down, I'm just going to essentially repeat it on the exit. So 0.4 seconds, I think this was. Yep. And this should just be 3G over 1.5 seconds. Try 1.6. I might need to adjust the tension as well. Okay, so again, 110. How long is this? 1.52. So I'll set this to 1.52. Probably end up being different anyway, but hey ho. Yep, I already think that is like disgusting. So, alright. So this is obviously a bit too low. So now I need to adjust this section to bring it up a bit higher. And we can see that doesn't turn quite enough. This looks like it's, again, kind of all in a straight line. Whereas this, if it were to come out at 180, there'd be this big overhang over a straight line here. So I need to just this section here of vertical force now to just bring that a bit further over. That looks like it's a bit too far now. So just bring that to about here, maybe. And have a look at that. Then might just want to slightly change this. Very slightly. Yeah. And I'll make this roll dynamic for now. And from this angle, that shows this is actually a lot taller. So I do need to take a bit of length off this section. Just going to take 1/10 and look at it from this angle, see if I've got that thing with the shaping. It looks like I might need to just extend this a bit. Okay. Again, from this angle, looks maybe a bit too tight at the top, so I might just try lengthening this a bit. That looks a lot better already, a lot more symmetrical. I'm just going to adjust the center on this. Okay. So that looks good from this angle. But now let's get our everything crushed by looking at it from top and seeing that the shadows are nowhere near each other. So I'm going to need to decrease this section. That's close, but not quite what I want, so I might have to just go into this. And that should be okay. And I might actually just lengthen this very slightly, bring it a bit further over, and now I'll take 1.3 seconds out for -10. And that actually looks like it's a bit too low now. Wow. Okay. And then from this angle, that looks not quite right. So where the base of this turn is not exactly at 90 degrees from the entrance, it seems. But I'm not too fussed about that. But as a basic inverted Cobra Roll, I think this will pass. Just going to bring that there and just take this to 0. Okay, there we go. Alright, so now you can see just if you compare this general graph to the sit down, there are a couple differences. The main ones being that this turn in the middle is equally as intense as the valleys, and also these little flat parts on the graph to help the snaps on top. I'll just roll through this. Might just very slightly. Oh, those rolls could definitely do with a bit of smoothing. Whether that be through decreasing the tension and slightly lengthening them to regain the roll that you lost by decreasing the tension. That would definitely smooth them out. But yeah, or you could just use the smoothing tool and see where that gets you. But for more like individual tweaking, decreasing the tension and changing the length would probably be a better way to go. So again, not a perfect Cobra Roll at all, but passable. And this is for any speed of Cobra Roll what the graph will resemble. Biggest things to note for both of these is that the transition into about 1G, so on the sit down it was 0.7G, on this 0.8. The transition should end roughly at the very top, and then that's where the snap should begin. On both the sit down and the inverted Cobra, the B&Ms, and generally for all of them. You don't want to have this transition ending up here, because then it just won't look good. It won't work either, unless it's going super slowly. Even then, I don't think it would. So, yep. And the rolls, in general, Cobra rolls, because they're reasonably short, if you do want a really whippy Cobra roll, don't try and make it look ridiculously whippy in FVD. Test it and test it in no limits until it's got the whip that you want, because it will end up feeling whippier in no limits than it probably does in FVD. So that's just a good thing to note with all of the Cobra rolls, really. But now let's move on to a non-inverting Cobra roll, like on Kondaa. Okay, as has been the case on both the Cobra rolls you've just seen, and will be the case on this, the Cobra roll will be going from left to right, but there will be a difference in the graph, which you should see immediately. So the heart line for a new intermin is 1.3 meters. Not sure what any of these have been in feet. I apologize for that. But let's just get into it. So I'm going to be using 95 kilometers an hour for this. Again, as I did before, I'm going to be using 3.7 G. And add a fourth section. Would help if I angled this down a bit. And now, instead of bringing this out to the right, oh, sorry, the left, I'm going to bring it out to the right, and it's going to be probably a bit more banking than beforehand. So that should be okay. And now I will append this. And that obviously is not what we want. So I'm just going to bring this down 4G, so to minus 0.3. And just bring this up and have a look at where this gets me. So that should be okay. And from here, just take this off dynamic and bring this back. And I'm going to try 130 degrees per second for 2 seconds. And that already I can tell. I think that either this roll here is making it turn too much, or this roll transition is too late because it doesn't look right, because the point where roll is 0 isn't at where the pitch is 0, which is really what I want. So maybe that's a bit better, and that looks more non-inverting than before. So up here, I'm going to bring this up 3G, or maybe I'll try 3.3, not over 1 second though, and I'll just go and prepend this. So this section 2.3, and just increase this section, because it needs to roll a bit more. Honestly, genuinely very much considering increasing the strength. Let's try 150. 150 seems okay. Let's just give this a roll. Yep, quite snappy, but not too snappy. And here, just very slightly lengthen that. Okay, now we have one of the sides done. So on Kondaas at least, what I can tell immediately is that the turn in the middle is nowhere near as tight as this, so I'm going to bring this force down a bit to 2.7 G. I just made this dynamic for the time being, and lengthen this very slightly. Also, I might just need to bring this down, because the entrance and exits on Kondaas Cobra Roll, at least non-inverting Cobra Roll, are pretty much right next to each other. It's not like a normal Cobra Roll where they're decently far apart. They're pretty much right next to each other. So just going to try and make this resemble it. So let's go at minus 150 here. Obviously not over 1 second. How long is this? It's 2.8 pretty much. So let's just try that. Already, yeah, that should not be looking like that. So just going to increase this section here. That looks a bit better, but not quite what I'd want. So I'm going to increase this section now to bring this second section a bit further down. And I might just increase this length. And this one. There we go. But probably this value will start a bit too early. And also on this, the entrance and exits will not be 180 degrees from each other. I don't think Kondaas are at all. But yeah, these definitely won't be. So now I'm going to bring this up 4 Gs over 1.7 seconds. Bend. I'm just going to check if either of these invert. This one does. So the second one probably will. Yeah, it does. By less than the first one though. Okay, and just for this, just make this dynamic quite quickly, and might just increase this section. So now that probably definitely inverts more than the first even. Yeah. That is the general shape of it, of Kondaas at least. Obviously, if you want to get them exactly so they're non-inverting, or if you think they do actually invert in person, it just depends on what you think. But I'm happy with keeping it not non-inverting, just getting the shape right, on this at least. But the main thing is that these two are quite close to each other. Just going to have a look at it from this angle. Yeah, so from here, they're not quite close enough, for me at least. I prefer this one to be a bit further backwards. So maybe I'm going to have to increase this section a little. So that's 3/10, so maybe not quite that much. Let's just have a look at this. I think this is what I already had. Yeah. I feel like that might be the best I can do for the speed. But you can try all you want to get these as close really as possible. Well, not like that's touching each other, but so they're a lot closer than the B&M ones would be. It's definitely possible, but for this, I don't think it's necessary. So that is a non-inverting, or as we've seen, inverting, non-inverting Cobra Roll. Quite easy in comparison to the other two, in my opinion at least. I definitely think it's the easiest of the three, the inverted one being the hardest. But have a go at all of them and see what you think. So yeah, that's the end of this tutorial. I hope you learned something. I hope you can actually now build a Cobra Roll. Again, if you're having any trouble with FVD, just drop a comment. I'll do my best to try and help. Any other elements you'd like to see, I'm fairly confident I might try and make a Dress Loud top hat tutorial, because I struggled for those for pretty much all my time using FVD, and I've only just now been able to pretty much get them, and even still I'm not quite happy with them. So, but any other elements other than that, whether it be something even as simple as a vertical loop or a corkscrew, whatever you're struggling with, just drop it in the comments, and I'll try and get a tutorial out as quickly as possible. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something useful for FVD, and I'll see you in the next one.